Well, look at this. Owen Jones done an article, didn't he? That's right, Owen Jones, the man with a Welsh-sounding name, but without any of the Welsh's sensibilities. The title goes like this. Wah, wah, wah. Tory lies go and challenge democracy. Wah, wah, wah. Labour must focus on the Tories. Wah, 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 wah. That's pretty much the introduction to this article. And it goes on. The Conservative election campaign has been built on a platform of lies. Wah, wah, wah. But it crashed to a new low with the grotesque manipulation of the London Bridge terrorist attack. Now, I have seen people bring up something quite interesting, is that they politicise the London Bridge terrorist attack. So this is calling out Boris Johnson for politicising the London Bridge attack. Yes. And it has been pointed out by contemporaries that, it's a bit like when Labour politicised Grenfell Towers. That was really politicised, wasn't it? That massive tragedy. Makes me think, going back to, a bygone era, I suppose, like the Hillsborough disaster. I couldn't imagine people trying to politicise the Hillsborough tragedy, in the same way that they do now with tragedies. I think that would be really tasteless. But so, one side politicises one thing, one side politicises the other. It just makes you think they're all the same? I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking too much outside. Maybe I'm just looking into it too much. But it is interesting because there is an article in The Guardian by, can't remember her name. She's another lunatic anyway. Who thinks that London Bridge should be politicised. That this is definitely something that should be politicised. And she's definitely in the same lane as Owen. So, you might want to have a word with her, whatever her name is. Can't remember her name. I really should have remembered her name. She's a lunatic anyway. So, if stay consistent, guys. Where others reacted with horror and grief, Johnson and his team saw an opportunity to electioneer. That they used this as a chance to promote punitive penal policies, which one of the victims, 25-year-old Jack Merritt, devoted his short life to fighting against, almost beggars belief. It's like, what? Someone could get murdered. I don't know. I don't know. Someone could have been campaigning for, the non-incarceration of schizophrenics and get murdered by a schizophrenic. Doesn't mean, I don't know what I'm saying. It's just, so what? He was campaigning for it. What, they're supposed to just base the law on the views of the victims? It seems a bit of a weird one to me. Like, well, you should respect the views of the victims. I don't know, many victims could have had some fucking fruity views, do you know what I mean? That's like saying, I don't know, say you didn't agree in gay marriage, but the judge was married and gay, married to his boyfriend, married to his husband, And it's like, oh no, he wouldn't like someone to be, he wouldn't like his murderer to be judged and, convicted by someone in a same-sex marriage. He didn't agree with that. I don't know, maybe that's a bad example, but fuck it, Owen Jones. To bolster the case, the Tories again fall back on lies. Johnson claimed Parliament blocked plans to prevent automatic early release for prisoners. False, it was passed by 16 votes. That opposition parties were to blame for the terrorist release in 2012. False, that Labour introduced legislation allowing the early release of terrorists. False, that Jeremy Corbyn wants to disband MI5. False, the lies provide a shield from their own record. Whatever. See, and now the worst thing about this is I've got to take Owen's word for this, and I just don't believe a word he fucking says. No, this is the British Jussie Smollett, Come on, Owen. What really happened? Do you know what I mean? I can't really believe a word he says because he constantly manipulates truths and spouts off bollocks. Do you know what I mean? He believes in quite a few conspiracy theories himself. Do you know what I mean? He's just a bit of a nutbag, as far as I'm concerned. So I can't really verify if any of this is false or true. Do you know what I mean? Because I've been hearing a lot of stuff that is just completely false. It's election time, so there's going to be even more false stuff going around, you know? The lies provide a shield from their own record. The decimation of prisons and probation budgets. An ex-prosecutor even claims that Johnson told him that there wasn't enough money to fund de-radicalization programs. Alright. Okay. Well, maybe there wasn't enough money. Isn't that why austerity exists? Wasn't that to pull Britain out of the shit? Because, we couldn't afford stuff? Isn't that why budget cuts were made? Because of the recession and shit? Am I missing something? Yet how to properly confront such deceit when so much of the media exists to facilitate rather than scrutinise or challenge the Conservative Party? Oh, come on, Owen, that's a complete load of bullshit, isn't it? You're just talking about the newspapers that make money are the ones who are kind of pro-conservative. It's a fact. There's only a couple of profitable newspapers. I think it's the Daily Mail and the Sun, and that's it. The rest of them, like the Guardian, the Guardian begs for money. The Guardian's too dumb to run adverts as well. You know, so the rest of them ain't making money. The Times, which is right wing, is propped up by the Sun, because they're owned by the same people. It's like supplemented, a bit like how the South props up the North. Yes, the North is subsidised because the South pays for that shit. So, whenever you're ready, Owen, to give us a thanks, I know you live in the South, but you are an invader from the North. Anytime you want to say thank you for the suffering of everyone in the Southeast, so you can, get your £2 ticket to shit town from your crappy job. We're waiting for the thank you, please. Sorry, I've gone off on a tangent. This whole all the right-wing media, it's all the fucking right-wing media. Was come on, majority of all other media that is big is very left-leaning. Loads of it. There's this weird thing that they go on about. It's like you're talking about a couple of newspapers that are right-wing, and they just happen to be the ones that make money. I wonder why that is. Why right-wing newspapers would be able to stay afloat. Maybe because they're better at business? I don't know, maybe. I don't know. What do I know, eh? What the fuck do I know, Owen? I don't write for The Guardian. I'm just me. I don't know, nothing, do I? No. So, anyway, there is little, if any, demarcation? I've never read that word in my life. Between the Tory election apparatus and many British newspapers. They are one unified, integrated, ruthless machine and should be treated as such. I like the way they every time someone writes in The Guardian, especially Owen Jones, they think they're totally separate from all other newspapers. No, we're not like them. We're the only virtuous and truth-telling newspaper on planet Earth. It's kind of why I always go after The Guardian, is because it's just the amount of bullshit, the amount of their own bullshit that they must believe is terrifying. I mean, they're just simply awful. They're a propaganda peddling nonsense machine, the same as a lot of the others. I don't know why they constantly try to make out that they're so above all this game. We're not part of that. Oh no, don't you lump us in with that. Fuck off. You are. You're the same. I don't understand it. Many British newspaper. We're not a British newspaper. We're a good newspaper. We're The Guardian. As front pages Lord Johnson's manipulation of a horrific incident, the pleas of Merritt's father, David, go unanswered. Don't use my son's death and his colleagues' photos to promote your vile propaganda. Jack stood against everything you stand for: hatred, division, and ignorance. Okay, well, he would have hated Owen Jones then as well. Then there is the Andrew Neil debacle. All leading politicians should face a level playing field during an election campaign, given the partisan loyalties. Of most newspapers, this is impossible, but It is the least we should expect from our public broadcaster, and yet the BBC responded to Friday's atrocity by performing a U-turn on the decision to block Johnson's interview with Andrew Marr until the Prime Minister agreed to subject himself to Neil's Rottweiler treatment. The BBC instead allowed Johnson to use the atrocity to grandstand and repeat untruths, which were only later challenged by a BBC Twitter account. Okay, well, it's a public broadcaster, and he is the Prime Minister. So, if he wants to address the nation, that's kind of how it goes. Because he's, in charge, you fucking dick. The BBC has allowed terrorism to interfere with British democracy. As Phil Harding, the BBC's former controller of editorial policy and editor of the Day to Day programme, put it, the decision allowed Johnson to appear prime ministerial and made a tax and election issue. Well, he is in charge. I mean, what do you want to do? I don't know. I don't think appear prime minister. Well, he is the fucking prime minister, isn't he? I don't understand that. The British right has long fantasised about privatising and gutting the BBC. Do you know what? I think it is good that the BBC. Well, the thing is, the BBC's got really whack. So, something needs to be done. I don't think I think it's good that we have something that's paid for by the public. It's just. It sort of doesn't listen to the public, just sort of berates them and tells them how they should think, which is a problem, because no one wants to pay for that, do they? Anyway, corporations' editorial decision-making, but now even the centre is turning against it. This election campaign has been the BBC's nadir. From editing out Johnson being ridiculed by a question time audience, simply a mistake, we are told. This is the thing, it's you have Owen Jones and the Momentum Lunatic Squad accusing the BBC of doing all this, being very pro-conservative. And then everyone that's conservative just says the BBC is way too left-leaning. I say, well, maybe it's in the middle. Maybe it's the only thing that's left in the fucking middle in these days. Who knows? It's just not very good. Well, that's part of the problem. So, to supinely publishing video of him eating scones in a fashion that would embarrass North Korea's official news agency. I think that's the news agency you want to work for. The counterweight to our right-wing press is fast being eroded. It really isn't, Owen. Come on, will you listen to yourself? And then creeps in the idea that the problem lies with both sides of the political divide. It does. Muddy the waters. Ascribe blame equally for dishonesty. It works, of course. Speaking to voters on doorsteps across the country, I hear the constant refrain that all politicians lie, but it's too easy an accusation to level, and one that's bolstered by casual asides from senior BBC presenters such as Emily Maitlis, like the idea that is the election of 2 billion trees and 50,000 nurses, where numbers and accountability became... some article he's referencing, I don't care. Alright. Of course. No one would accuse. It's like, no, we've done nothing wrong. It's them. It's like, oh, shut up. Honestly, he started it. Owen, you're too politicised. You're too active in political campaigning. You're just too openly who you are. To be a journalist. You shouldn't be a fucking journalist. There shouldn't be right-wing and left-wing journalism. This shouldn't fucking exist. But it does. I mean, and this is why I'm berating you, because you're just one of those people that just stands for all that's bad. You talk about people being divisive. I've never heard anything non-divisive come out of your mouth. Ever. It's always divisive. It's just it's always sowing the seeds of division. Continuously. I mean, you talk about the Daily Mail being a bunch of nutbags, but come on, Owen. Come on. Hello? Have you heard yourself? The comparison between Labour's mass tree planting commitment and achievable aim that has accomplished in other countries and a Tory policy on nurses, which we know is bogus because the figure includes retaining existing nurses, is hugely damaging. Sorry, I've dropped the Owen Jones voice. It is easy to conclude that this is merely barking at fun. It rains on bank holidays, buses come in twos, and the media landscape favours the Conservatives. And it's certainly a deliberate tactic from the Tories to keep the left relentlessly bogged down in outrage at their lies. Right. Well, you are very good at being outraged all the time. I mean, that could be. Maybe that is their tactic. Is that what he's saying is their tactic? Because it could be. I mean, like, they have successfully stayed in power with being quite mundane and inept. You know, everyone tries to make the Tories out to be like pure evil, but like they just not. They just haven't been very good, have they? They just haven't done very well at much. You know, but they haven't done super badly as well. It's just like, it's just been like, yeah, you know, it's like, yeah, and yet you can have all this radical shouting from the other side. People still don't want it. They think, right, we'll just stick with this, yeah, you know, because we don't want that. That's a bit much. And but they've successfully stayed in power, and I think it has been by completely splitting, because the Labour Party was very strong, and now it's just been, you know, they sort of split it in. They managed to sort of let it tear itself apart, and then get taken over by completely unelectable lunatics. It's possible that they will get in, though, but don't be surprised if they don't get in. You know, don't be surprised. I'll be more surprised if they get in, you know, but I wouldn't be that surprised, because a lot of surprising things have happened over the last few years, haven't they? You know, some very surprising things. So there's just, you know, there's not a lot left to be surprised by at this point, I suppose. Anyway, but if the Tories are allowed to lie and challenge, then our democracy will wither, while Labour should spend the remainder of the campaign focusing on the Tories' wretched record in government. The threat the party poses to the NHS in promoting its radical domestic agenda is beholden on those of us of platform form to challenge the Tory systemic deceptions. The aim is not simply to defeat Johnson, but to defend a democracy in mortal danger. When someone's this extremely left-wing and extremely opposed to any sort of conservative or right-wing sensibility, I don't think you believe in democracy, to be honest with you. You know, I don't think super far left and super far right people are fans of democracy. I just don't think they are. I don't think they're fans of balance, yins and yangs. You know, I don't think they're fans of anything like that. Give and take. None of it. I don't think they like anything. So it's give. Take. Do you know, I just don't. Owen Jones is a Guardian columnist. That's all, and that just sums it up, doesn't it? That's what you are. You write a column in The Guardian. That's it. You just yap. You're just yapping. And that's all you do. You know, that's all you do. This good versus evil bullshit that you perpetuate. You know, it's just so transparent. It's like, just shut up. People have really had enough of it. And you're going to lose.